Mais je pense que ça vient pas de chez vous, puisque nous, on l'a... comme ça marche sur YouTube et que vous entendez le micro, pour lui, le micro est pas différent de la musique du PC pour lui.
Oui, normalement.
C'est mixé au même endroit, ça arrive... je sais pas...
Oui, oui, c'est autre chose. Bon, de toute façon, Catherine, tu vas nous envoyer les slides avec les
Tout à
fichiers
fait.
audio et puis on va écouter.
Tout à fait.
Il ne faut pas se prendre le chou là, on y va, vous inquiétez pas, on va se débrouiller.
Donc vous pouvez écouter le son sur YouTube. Vous pouvez écouter le son sur YouTube pour avoir l'audio si vous voulez. Mais bon, c'est...
On écoutera tranquillement après et on vous enverra.
We will inquire for next time. So I again thank you for coming back and to hear the 3 next teams of this afternoon. And let's have a warm welcome for the first one, which is Ar-Mare.
There is something deeply wrong at this lighthouse. I hear it scratching in the walls. I hear it in the foghorn. Its light burns my skin when I wake up at night, and yet, this place is the closest thing I have to a home. Welcome to Ar-Mare. Ar-Mare is a psychological horror game playable on PC in solo mode with a time to completion of around 6 hours. You can play in first person with a playable character that can walk and run, interact and read notebooks, and all of that with keyboard and mouse. For the target, these are players who love immersive stories, deep characters and world to uncover for the narrative richness. They're drawn to isolated and hostile settings based on a constant tension, and they can play Amnesia: The Dark Descent or Layers of Fear, for example. And they like the unknown symbolism of the lighthouse and sea, where fear can come from everywhere. And they can appreciate games like Subnautica. For a game experience, we have 3 main pillars, which are psychological horror, with the feeling of supernatural and anxiety with a monster that's a disincarnate presence. Then a place with a mind of its own, that represents the desolate lighthouse, which is a place where supernatural events take place. And the loneliness, because the game will focus on the inherent hardships of life at sea, as well as how to badly cope with solitude. And based on those pillars, we really want the player to engage in a powerful atmospheres that embodies terror's animations, an introspective experience marked by an unsettling solitude, and a full immersion into the unique nautical world and its vast mystery. So you can see the reference with Still Wakes the Deep, Firewatch, and Dredge. And last, we really want the player to feel the tension and the loneliness and doubt about what is happening on the little island.
Our main character is Morgane Ledrien. She's a 40-year-old unmarried ex-fisherwoman. After the war, when work got scarce for women and when they were asked to return to their house to the surviving men, Morgane wanted none of that. Instead, so she'd be left alone, she turned to the kind of work that no one wanted to do. This is how she ended up as a lighthouse keeper. Morgane is a literal drive of the story. As a female keeper in the 1920s, we felt that her gender as well as her characterization were crucial in making our story talk about not only the harsh conditions of life at sea, but also the kind of terror that comes with being a woman alone, cornered by events out of your control and a dark presence watching you. For Morgane, for Morgane's story and characterization, we had 3 female characters from different art forms as inspirations. First, The Lady of Shalott Ballad by Alfred Tennyson. It tells the story of a woman trapped in a tower up the river of Camelot. Then Morgane Le Fay from the Arthurian literature. She's a woman who defied and went against the rules of gender for a time. And Mary from Silent Hill 2. Before her death, she was sweet and reserved, but then she was given an alter ego called Maria, who was deep down who she maybe would have rather been, a more outgoing, desirable woman. As for the lighthouse, it is also our main character. It acts as both a place where take place very real, very harsh conditions of life, but also as a place where supernatural events occur to mess with its inhabitants. It is a place of images and metaphors. As such, it will show Morgane's worst fears and secret inner thoughts, but not because it is evil, but because it is an entity beyond human comprehension. For the references, we were mainly inspired by two places, the Grand Overlook Hotel from The Shining and the town of Silent Hill from the eponymic games. Both are where unexplainable supernatural events happen, and it is unclear if said events are real or are not real. Here is our gameplay loop. Ar-Mare is not a game where you can get a game over screen, nor a game where you can die. There are no enemies to fight, as it is an experience to live. Our gameplay loop works in three phases: exploration, challenge, and reward. Challenge is in a task to do around a lighthouse, whether it be a simple QTE or longer, more complicated puzzles. The more complicated puzzles are rewarded by the big narrative moments or reveals about Morgan and the Ar-Mare lighthouse.
So here you can have a look at the overall experience of the game. So we try to include more and more events happening as the player goes through the story. So the start of the story is the fact that Morgan, our character, starts a new job as a lighthouse keeper in Ar-Mare. And she's supposed to work with a duo, but the second keeper never actually steps foot on the island. And although she's used to working on an isolated and harsh environment, she isn't used to being alone. And the disappearance of this second character breaks her routine and is the starting point of the tension and her loneliness. So our vertical slice takes place during the rising action phase after the inciting incident, which is when things actually start to get weird. And we will include a narrative cliffhanger at the end of the VS to ensure we leave the player wanting for more. The action takes place on a small island offshore, which is inspired from the south coast of Brittany and real-life lighthouses like Thévenec or La Vieille. And the player has access to two main buildings, the lighthouse and a small house. Our intention with that is to create a contrast between two spaces, with the house acting as a refuge and the lighthouse being more mysterious and uncanny. And we want to allow the player to really explore the surroundings, include gating, closed doors, etc. So the house is a more conventional space with a kitchen, 2 bedrooms, a living room and a desk. There is a staircase that leads to the attic, but it's locked during the entire VS. However, the player may find a hatch in room 2 that leads to a small part of the attic. This small room contains toys and objects that belonged to Morgan when she was a child, and it represents the will of the lighthouse to provide a presence for her in reaction to her loneliness and distress. And it is accessible in the first day of the VS and marks the beginning of major horror events. The lighthouse is a vertical space with very small sized rooms, a machine room, a watch room, and a gallery, which is the outdoor area on the very top. So as you go through the space, you will follow Morgan's daily routine as a lighthouse keeper and identify with her and her everyday life and tasks. So the tasks you will have to complete are either a small animation or a full-on mini-game. And this system allows us to place the horror events in a way that disturbs your sense of routine and familiarity while giving you goals and guidelines. So this is an example of a task that includes a mini-game. So on the first day of the VS, the fuses blow in the house. So you have to find spare fuses. So you go outside the house into the lighthouse, you pick them up on the table in the machinery room. Then you go back outside, you go back inside the house, and you interact with the electrical panel that's in room 2, which opens a mini game where you have to replace the fuses and then click on the correct switches to light all the lights. And this is where things start to get weird around you with you hear footsteps above you in the attic and the door has disappeared behind you. And you grab the ladder that's on the side, place it underneath the hatch, and this is when you gain access to the attic room.
The lighthouse uses Morgan's fears and communicate with her using it. We really want the player to feel the lighthouse as a character and itself. To do so, we will use paranormal events like light anomalies, moving furnitures, hardware malfunction and uncanny sound to enhance the sensation of being watched.
As we said, we want the player to feel immersed in a haunted place. We want the place to be full of ex-lighthouse keepers' stories, to feel alive. We also want the player to feel that the place is pushing the keepers to leave them by any way. To do so, in-game, the place will be filled with personal effects of the ex-lighthouse keepers. It should be filled with old, damp-looking objects that stay there for a long time. The lighting will also support the uncanny and peculiar settings with strong shadows and ungraphic colors, giving overall a really dark ambience.
In order to make Ar-Mare a more enjoyable experience for all players, we based our work in a lot of historical research and created accessibility guidelines early on in order to create our projects around it. Likewise, in order to support the game pillars and the feelings we try to evocate within the players, we're going for a simple user flow and a minimalistic user interface in order for them to fully immerse themselves at Morgan.
Immerse yourself in a haunting world of terror. Face unsettling solitude in a deep introspective journey, and dive into the vast mysteries of a unique nautical realm. These are the key selling points we wanted to introduce in this niche of horror we want to really dive into. Next, you can see, you can have a brief look of our marketing positioning, where we are putting Ar-Mare between tension and narrative driven. Now for the team, we have Maureen and Emma-Louise as level and narrative designer, Hugo as a sound designer, Albin, Victorien and Gabriel as a concept and 3D artist, Marion and Jules as a programmer, Simon as a UX UI designer, and me as a producer. Thank you a lot for your attention, and if you have any questions, our Ar-Mare team will be happy to answer any of them.
Thank you. So who wants to start? Questions or remarks? Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. It's really interesting to see new narrative-driven games on in the Enjmin. The main question I have, having worked on a lot of these before, is can you detail a bit more what kind of gameplay we will have in this game? You mentioned puzzles, and that's it. Is there something a bit more? Because I kind of want to see how you want to represent that, the place with a man on its own, or the loneliness through interactive means. So do you have already some leads on that?
I showed it a bit in my gameplay loop, but it's mostly a balance between exploration and puzzles. So there is one main puzzle per day, with a bit of maybe 2 days, two other tasks in the day. So there is one little task and one other task and one big puzzle to solve during the day, so that you can access another day. So yeah, it's centered around exploring. If you can say more.
No, sorry. We also have an internal narrator to comment on our actions, and a lot of exploration, so you can interact with objects to get a bit more lore, storytelling. Yeah, this is what we want.
Thank you.
I know it's the afternoon, but maybe you have questions, remarks?
Hi, I'm Isabel from Ubisoft. First of all, I really like the idea. I think it looks great. Second of all, I did get a tad bit confused with the story. So she's starting a new job there, and is this like her first day, and then someone never showed up? How is there childhood toys of her in the attic? Like, is that part of the story or something? Like, is there something you guys not telling us? Because I just got confused, that's it.
We did hold back a little for the mystery side, but it is not her first day at the beginning of the vertical slice. It is her first job as a lighthouse keeper, so she doesn't really know the job well, but she is a woman who is used to work. About the childhood toys, we really want the lighthouse to feel like it shows her part of herself. So it's really a place of strange and uncanny things where uncanny things happen. So there is the story of the lighthouse keepers, as we said, but there is also the story of herself in the lighthouse, because it shows her inner self and what used to happen in her childhood to scare her into leaving. It's really, like I said, a very Silent Hill-esque type, where the town itself is real, but what it shows you maybe isn't, and it's a bit a mirror of yourself.
Okay, and then one other thing. Obviously, this is an island. I don't know how you guys thinking to portray her going to the island, if she has her own boat or if she's dropped there. But the whole idea of like her being dropped there is that probably she has like specific date that she has to wait for someone to pick her up. Like so she has to like hold until that day and stuff like that. So you guys can play with that idea of like I cannot leave until then. Like I must survive. If she has her own boat, like she can just leave at any point. So it's a bit different. So yeah. Okay, cool.
Thank you.
There's questions online. So Marguerite, if you want to start.
Yep. So thank you for your presentation. I really loved your references. It's very clear, very exciting. I don't really have a question per se, rather two books recommendation that could fuel your imagination. We'll put it in the questionnaire, so you can have it if you're interested. It would be Le Mur Invisible by Marlène Haushofer, Sous les ossements des morts from Olga Tokarczuk. I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrong. And Préféré l'hiver from Aurélie Janin. I'll put the title in the questionnaire, but I really think it could help you create this moody and lonely atmosphere you're aiming at.
Thank you very much.
It's noted.
Thank you. Mishka, you had maybe a question or a remark?
Yes, I really like the aesthetic you presented on the pitch deck, but I'm wondering, like the final, the drawings were very detailed with a lot of texture on them. So, will the final product of the game, do you see using like cell shading or something similar, but with more texture to show a similar aesthetic, or will you do something more clean and like 3D, typically 3D game?
Thanks for your question. So we're currently working on the aspects of the game. So we have several ideas. We will work on textures and materials with a hand-drawn look, and we are searching for and making some post-process too on Unreal to add a little brush aspect in the game.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. I'm Luca from Ubisoft. I wanted to know how you would like to convey the fact that your character will experience psychological horror. Is it something you would like to show? I know that you have as a reference amnesia, I think. I'm not sure. No? Well, sorry. I thought so. But did you plan to have like I don't know, like a specific health bar for that? Can your character, I don't know, have a mental breakdown, or is it something that you don't want to show and present in your project?
Thanks for the question. We don't really want to talk about whether it be. There's no enemies in the game. It's only supernatural events that are happening. So we feel that there's no point for a health or a mental health bar. And we want to focus on loneliness and the feelings that loneliness, the physical elements that happen in your head when loneliness takes place, especially in such an environment, a very harsh environment, and for the times too, 1920. So we want to focus on the conditions of life. We want to focus on what it means to be also a female in 1920 in a lighthouse, but we don't want to focus on the mental health aspect of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I I think Cécile wants to talk after this one.
Vas-y, Cécile. Thank you.
Just thank you for your project, which is really nice. And I was just wondering, because I come from this area in Brittany and with lighthouses, where the weather and wind and the elements are very important. How do you include these elements into your gameplay, into your atmosphere, into what is happening for her in the lighthouse?
Thanks for the questions. We really want to enhance the environment of the lighthouse. So to do so, we will use audio as our main tools. And we went on Brittany already to do field recording and sound recording. So we also have, we already have a sound library made with all those elements. And so yeah, the ambiances of the game and the audio outside ambiances is quite a big things to do, because like it will need a lot of work, and we are putting a lot of attention on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, this is great. Like, this is really, really interesting, and a lighthouse is a great place to set a horror game or movie or story of any kind, really. I will bring it up because you didn't mention it, but you should watch The Lighthouse if you've not. Yeah, I mean, you should have put it on there. It's a very good movie. My question, and again with really mean questions, but why did you name it that? Like, why did you give it that title, Ar-Mare? Because like reading it, I didn't know how to pronounce it. It's not really evocative of anything in particular, so.
So the title might change, but Ar-Mare means the tide in British, Breton, the language in Brittany. So it seems fitting, and actually a lot of lighthouses have a name derived from British words, like the lighthouse of Ar-Mare, which is exactly where we want to set up our game. So it makes sense in this regard, but I agree it's not very comfortable to pronounce.
Yeah, maybe add a subtitle or something.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hello, Mathieu again from Tactical Adventures. Thank you, a great presentation, very cool project, so very excited. I just have a question about the lighthouse and the gameplay. So it's an exciting location, but I think that it could also happen in when you are guarding a gas station or a watchtower in national park. So the lighthouse is something specific. So I was wondering, yeah, I know it's not the kind of game you make. It's going to rely heavily on the quality of level design and puzzles and the story you tell. But maybe there's something specific about the lighthouse, like the flight of stairs or the rotating lights, that could impact the gameplay in some way. And it was not clear to me in the presentation, but maybe it's not a good idea. I'll let you answer.
Sorry, thank you for your question. The reason we chose the lighthouse as a setting was to talk about the harshness of conditions of the lighthouse keepers and the isolation part, which means you are really offshore, you have no means to often to contact the land, and it's a specific kind of isolation that we thought was interesting. And we thought about puzzles involving the lights, but it seemed a bit too out of scope for the vertical slice, but it's something we want to dig in the future.
However, we will use all the aspects of the weather, the storms, for scares. Not scares like terror, but like scare stress. And also the revolving light as a way to scare the player, because what if this light suddenly revolves, but it didn't turn on the machinery? Maybe something is up there.
It's a good ending. So I don't know if there's other questions or remarks. If no, let's congratulate the team. And let's welcome the next one, Red Blood C.
Hello and welcome to the presentation of Red Blood Sea. In Red Blood Sea, you're playing as a century-old rapier in first person. Trapped in your own memory, you'll have to brave waves composed of your past enemies and maybe along the way forgive them and yourself for spilling blood. It's a solo hack and slash in arena game where you will be fighting wave of enemies wielding a rapier in first person view.
So going into Red Blood Sea, our target audience is going to have expectations regarding the hack and slash genre, which is to be taken into account. Our game is aimed at people looking for an exciting experience, which is fast-paced and action-packed. Our target audience is up for a challenge in the sense that the game will encourage them to practice and to get better at understanding the game's mechanics. It's also for people looking for a degree of immersion, where they can influence an abstract world around them by making decisions.
Let's talk about our intentions. Our goal is to question the habits of the players and the automatic reflexes everyone has. Like if you put a weapon in your hand and you're in an arena, you will try to kill everything you see. And to question this, we want to get the player to take a step back on their actions, realize that there is a whole other way of playing the game, and still let them choose which way aligns with their intentions. Our objectives are great if people want to play again, to test the other ways of playing, if they understood the hidden mechanic and find it interesting, and if our controller is nervous and juicy to play with. So our approach to achieve this is to make quality over quantity, especially for the character controller. We wanted to make something enjoyable for the player. And we will take a huge time in conception and experimentation, especially for the arena and the enemies.
So our main goal is to have the players engaged in a different way with the game without us telling them to. So how can we make them search for and find an alternative way to play in what seems at first like a regular hack and slash? We have 3 points of leverage. Those are sparking curiosity by leaving clues and recurring symbols for the players to find and interpret. Will lead them to question what they know and wonder if they're missing something. We're also going to make them want it. Seeing their actions have consequences and empathizing with enemies through their behavior, the players will wish for an alternative. And finally, there's coincidence. Players might simply stumble upon the non-violent way of dealing with enemies by accident, and that will lead them to experiment and try to figure out what they did. So for player experience, first, the main character is the rapier. You play as the rapier that has been around since the beginning of time and has always served its bearer to kill their enemies. And it has thus forged their legends. The ancient wielders of that rapier have always used it to perpetuate the massacre and remain in that status quo. And the rapier's goal is to get out of that place and that cycle, but as it is a weapon, it has never been able to do so without slaughtering. And that's it.
So for now, we have started working on the player movement. So as you can see, there's a jump and a dash, as well as a way to slam yourself into the ground. So we copied for now the Ultra Kill player controller to have a base from which we can iterate on. And we can now talk a bit more about the rapier's power.
So we have a few set of powers that this rapier can use. They can slash at inhabitants to reveal their weak points, representing where they've been stabbed in the past. By stabbing all of an inhabitant's weak points, we kill them. We also have a mechanic of possession. The rapier can possess the inhabitants by launching itself into an enemy, and they'll then see through their eyes and control their bodies. This mechanic will allow them to move quickly across the level and will also be central to our hidden way of dealing with inhabitants, linking. By possessing every inhabitant present, their souls become linked through the rapier, and through that unity they find peace and disappear. That is our non-violent hidden solution.
So this is how the game will be split in a full release. So there would be several arenas who will, not unlike in Hades, have each their thematic, narrative and graphics themes. And so in each arenas we will have several levels, each made of waves of enemies that will make vary by placing their weak points at different places or at different quantity.
As stated previously, one important way of making the players want to engage with the game differently is to show them the consequences and the weight of their actions. That's why the way the players deal with inhabitants will have consequences on the environment and the enemy behavior, both on the short term, during a level, and on the long term, across the game and all the way to different endings.
Now a bit about the universe of the game. First, in our universe, we want to use a lot of symbolic. We want to create recurrent elements for the whole game that we could use in many different contexts. It's still a very early phase for us. We want to explore it a lot with this, as we want this to be a tool for the narrative and a strong drive for the aesthetics. Also, as you may have guessed from the title, blood is a very important thing in our game. We wanted to catch a visceral feeling, not something gore. We want to stay elegant in this way, but we want to catch something organic. We're still experimenting with floral aspect and gymnastic ribbon inspirations, and we already experimented with some workflow using Houdini simulations.
So the action takes place in a mental space, and more precisely in the memory of the rapier, which is a prisoner and the guardian of this universe. So we wanted to present a surrealistic environment with no specific function, so we can see it as the reality. Also, our goal is to create an out-of-time feeling. So to achieve it, we also need to have strong identity thanks to symbolic elements, as we mentioned earlier. And for the whole game, multiple arenas could be imagined based on different themes according to the narration. Concerning the vertical slice, we will work and focus on this specific arena.
Sound design. So our pillars for the audio direction are an abstract, timeless character for music, ambience, and environment-related SFX to anchor the universe in the mental space that we are depicting. We also want a very textural approach, so sounds should provoke a sort of visceral reaction. This is done by hinting to organic, almost human sounds, but without gore, as we said before. We want to avoid gore. And lastly, for our sound pillars, we want as much of the sound palette as possible to be affected by the consequences system. So for example, one ambience could change dynamically depending on if you chose a violent or non-violent path. So here's a quick showcase of those two outcomes for one of our environments. And there's no sound on the video. Ah yes, the computer is muted. Some references for the project are artists and sound designers who all have a common point. They all have a very textural, organic, and especially emotional approach to sound design. Like them, I would like to blur the boundaries of what is considered part of music and what is part of the ambience, and consider that a diegetic part of the game. So for our approach, we want to have we want to be as systemic as possible. We want to allow sounds of the environment, music, and enemies in general to be dynamic and adapt to the player's actions. And we will also be very, very mindful about some things, especially spatial awareness and legibility in a fast-paced setting such as this one.
For the inhabitants, the enemies living in this imaginary world are the souls of the people that I've killed in the past, and the fact that they still inhabit this place convey the idea that their souls are stuck here, and also that the rapper is still holding them. The appearance of the inhabitant is comprised of visceral and symbolic ornaments that are used to highlight the discovered weak point for readability, while respecting the symbolism in the game and their meaning.
We also will want to pinpoint the fact that the enemies are living creatures, and so they have a complex behavior. And so we want to also put an emphasis on the fact that their reactions are based on the player's behavior and the player's informed choices. And so we want to support the idea that the cycle of violence can be broken or perpetuated, but that it depends on the player's choices. And so the default state of the enemy will be passive, and we are experimenting different other states that could depend on the player's choices, such as the afraid or aggressive state.
Now I'll present you the vertical slice walkthrough of Red Blood Sea. So in order, we will focus on the gameplay loop and the consequences system. So as you can see on the screen, we will produce 1 to 2 levels on the same environment, the arena we showed you earlier. And we will focus on the controller, which have to be juicy, nervous, and enjoyable for the player, as it's an hack and slash arena. And at the end of the vertical slice, we will show the consequences of how the player played during these levels. So there is 3 cases. The player could have linked a lot of enemies and make them disappear without violence, or it could have killed a lot of enemies and stabbed them with violence, or it could be a mix between both. So we want to develop the two extreme ones and not the balanced one. And we will show the changes that operate on the environment, the enemies, and all the overall experience with the sound, etc. to the player. And thank you for listening. Now, if you have questions, we will be happy to answer.
So, first questions or remarks? Yes.
Hi, Rémi from Ubisoft. Thank you for our presentation. It looks really cool. I have a question about the linked gameplay. So you said you want a player to discover this gameplay, but I didn't get how do I link the people, and what is the challenge in this case?
Yeah, so to link the enemies is passes through this possession mechanic. So its first use is just to get around on the level and move quickly, but it has a second hidden use, which is once you have possessed every enemy in the room, they become linked. The rapier acts as a sort of linking element between all of their consciousnesses, and through that unity they disappear. They find peace in a way. So it's a way to still engage with the same movement mechanics that make the game fun, but instead of adopting an aggressive playstyle, you'll be adopting a more evasive one in order to try and possess everyone without getting hit.
Thank you.
Marguerite, I think you have a question or a remark online.
Yes. Hi, thank you for your presentation. I'm sorry if you mentioned it already. Is the rapier going to have a voice?
Do you have no voice?
To add to that response, we don't plan on having a voice for the rapier. However, we want to make it emotional in some way. So it won't be speech, but it should react to what's happening.
Okay, I just thought the voiceover would be nice.
Okay.
And regarding the sound design, just a question. You mentioned it would be both abstract and organic, so I'm not sure if I understood what you have in mind.
Yeah, we want to be on that border between you can tell what a sound is and you cannot, and sometimes you can, sometimes you cannot, and yeah, I think that's what we want to focus on, depending on the emotion we want to convey. If we want to convey something that's very precise, maybe it will be less abstract, and if we want to leave things open to the interpretation, we will go the other way around.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'm Isabel from Ubisoft. I'm a big player of roguelikes, love Hades, love Risk of Rain. Obviously, a big thing of roguelikes is the replayability of the game. I understand this is a vertical slice, but are you guys intending on putting some element to have a difference on each playthrough that you play of the game, or is it just going to be different based on how you approach the attack versus linking versus that? Is that the only difference you guys going to have?
Hi, thank you. So we have 3 different type of system. First one, like Clement said earlier, we have the behavior of the enemies. So depending on the input and the behavior of the player, the enemies are going to react to it and become more aggressive or maybe more afraid of him or her. After this, we have what we call the reprisal system, which is clearly inspired by the Nemesis system from Shadow of the Mordor. So every level, when you choose a violent way, you're going to the enemies are going to come back every level. And in the non-violent way, when you are linking the enemies, they disappear forever because their soul kind of ascend. Yes, I'm sorry. And the last system is clearly about the environment, how it is going to change on short, and we have what we are calling the short and the long consequences. For example, it could be one of them would be in only a level, and the rest of them are going to be with the light, the blood, the behavior of the enemies. So depending on how you choose to play, how you behave, how you try to destruct this ecosystem in a way, the world is going to react to it.
I think my question is more in the sense of if I were to do 2 playthroughs doing the exact same actions, would I get different outcomes? No.
No, I don't.
There's no
no.
different spawn points or different behaviors based on it's going to be exact.
We thought about it at the beginning of the concession to do maybe a sort of roguelites, but the team didn't thought it was appropriate for with the whole experience. So, but we thought about it.
Okay,
thank you.
Makes sense.
Thank you. Mishka, you have a question or a remark?
Yes. Again, with the scope, I know it's a vertical slice, but I'm wondering how many enemies do you think the final product would have? And the other question that I had about that is, does the same type of enemy get pacified by the same way? I thought in your discourse you had several ways to pacify your enemies or eliminate enemies in a pacific way. So how does that come into play?
So there is only one way to pacify the enemies with the linking mechanic, and for the vertical slide, we want to do only one type of enemy, but maybe to graduate the difficulty to with the weak spots, depending on where it is on the body. It is big, it is small. We would like to do the waves with this. I think Loris wants to add something.
Just from another point, the enemies, we wanted to make a focus on more of their behaviors rather than how they, or the more than their type. Sorry. So we put an emphasis on more how they act and behavior in the game and how they evolve around through the progression and through the acts of the player in the game.
So you're focusing more, I'm sorry to go again, you're focusing more on this Nemesis type of system instead of having several enemies. Is that right?
We would like to focus more on the behavior than the Nemesis system because the behavior is going to add a lot of depth in it, we think. Okay. Thank you.
I will bounce on that. Speaking of behaviors, which threat does the enemy cause? Like, is it a melee enemy, range enemy? Do you parry them? How do you defend? So what is the fight gameplay? How the enemy behave? And for example, do you die in one hit, or do you have a health bar and a health system?
So in terms of how we're going to engage with the enemies, as of now, we see them as attacking us by hand or a melee style, so without ranged options. And how we'll react through it is mostly through evasive options. So as said, we have a dash, a pretty big jump, we can move around pretty quickly. There's no parry mechanic in the game as of now. And the second part of your question was about the health system. So I believe that has yet to be really exactly defined. Will probably be fairly fragile in the sense that it is a fast-paced game. We want to avoid as much as possible getting hit, but the exact way in which we'll do that has not yet been defined. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions or remarks? Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. A question I have, because like during the presentation I wasn't sure I got it right, but you play as the sword, not the swords person. Okay. Is there anything, because you mentioned that you so far like copied the very okay. You copied the very fast-paced like ultra kill kind of like fast navigation of first-person shooter. Is there anything that you want to try and do to go beyond just that, based on the fact that you're the sword? Like, is there anything else that would prove like interesting in terms of movement mechanic or attack mechanic with this?
There's the possession mechanic, which is a quick way to move around by possessing a creature. So it kind of changes the way you perceive the enemies, because you can travel a long distance and also in the same time take the body of an enemy that could have proven to be dangerous for you at a given time. We have this, so the way to deal, the combat will be different than in Ultra Kill, because you have these weak point systems to reveal and to stab precisely. In terms of movement, for now it's really close, because we need to test it first in situations with actual enemies to really see how we're going to place ourselves. We're probably going to have something a bit less floaty than Ultra Kill, because I mean, not floaty, but aerial, because we don't have ranged weapons, so we need to stay on ground and fight the enemies. But yeah, we have to test it to really have more precision on how we're going to change the movements.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just checking if there's other questions online. Okay, no questions, remarks. So let's congratulate the team. And let's welcome the last one of today, Saudade.
let's go. All right, so hi everyone. We're going to talk about Saudade. Please, next slide. Thanks. So Saudade is a cozy exploration puzzle narrative solo game with a 3D isometric view in third person. And we're thinking of a computer and console release, so on Nintendo Switch and PlayStation and Xbox, with maybe, why not the Game Pass. And the duration of the game will be of around 6 to 8 hours. Now, our goal for the game is to create a journey that's centered around emotions, mistakes, and creativity.
All right. So the protagonist of Saudade is Ernestina, a woman born in 1956 in the Portuguese countryside, and she flew out of the country in 1972 during the dictatorship. She never went back to her home country, but is still really attached to it, and especially to some little things that remind her of her childhood, such as really tasty cough sweets, headscarves, but also birds, a symbol of escapism and freedom. When Ernestina smells scents, listens to some music or tastes meals that remind her of her childhood, in the style of Proust Madeleine, she plunges back into her memories. She finds herself in her home village at the time of the dictatorship. It takes the shape of a small animation in first-person view, during which Ernestina sits in front of a plate or listens to her radio. When the music ends or when she finishes her meal, the loop ends and Ernestina leaves her memories to come back to our time.
So a little bit more about the gameplay. So the concept of the memory loop, it's that you have 2 minutes of a memory loop, and at the end of the 2 minutes, it resets. However, every modification and optimizations you made in the world will stay. So if you create bridges over water, they will stay. In the end, how do you play? How do you make this? Well, you will find all kinds of different items and tools, and they will help you to forge your path. For example, you can find planks, seeds, or ropes. With these items, you will choose when and where to use them. For example, players, so we are expecting players to use logic and creativity to create their personalized path. And you can also move what you already placed in the world, so you can try, you can fail, and you can try again. We really want to give the players the agency to go somewhere the way they want and to have multiple ways of crossing obstacles. Also, the environment is alive around you, so this means that at each loop that passes, time passes also. So the plants will grow, animals will move, and timed events will happen. With all these mechanics, your goal as a player is to go further and further each loop you play. So this way you will meet new NPC, you will find new items, discover new places, and those places can then awake old memories and narrative phases. So in the end, you will play in a small open world, which is a large puzzle to explore. We will show you the first prototype of the game. So for this prototype, we set the loop at 10 seconds only to show you an example. You will first see the player trying to swim across the water, but it's too long. So in the second loop, he decides to take the plank and to place it to make a bridge, but it takes time, so he can't reach the other side properly. And at the third loop, the plank is already placed, so he will make it through to the next zone.
Ernestina learned how to craft small toy boats with her mother when she was young. And one day she decided that she wanted to make one for herself, but never managed to finish it before she went to France. In her memories, she now has the opportunity to fulfill this dream, and it is her main goal. To do so, she has to look for boat parts scattered around her old village. Those parts can, for example, be the mast of the boat, a seat, or maybe a sail, like here. And each part has a memorable moment attached to it, unlocking recollections of her childhood by the sea. And now we're going to see the intentions.
So, to guide us through our game design decisions, we have 4 pillars. The first is harmony with nature. We don't want the player to have a negative impact on their surrounding. Instead, we want them to be mindful of their environment. The second pillar is path creation and optimization. We want the player to build their own path and refine it through each loop. The third pillar is nostalgia, or more precisely, saudade. It's a Portuguese word that describes a bitterness longing for old memories that are lost forever. The last pillar, is casual and cozy. The game should feel calm and safe, but not necessarily easy.
For the art direction, we are aiming for a warm and soothing atmosphere, like a little cocoon in the countryside. We want to bring nostalgia through the soothing and warm side, but also add a touch of sadness and loneliness. Here you can see our main visual inspirations. For example, Death Door for the isometric view and the level of detail, or Tiny Glade for the fluffiness of the vegetation.
So here is the little diorama you saw earlier in the video of the prototype. So we wanted to test early our idea to the art direction by creating a small sample of what we might see in the game. Here we made a scene of 10 by 10 meters, but in the final vertical slice, we will have a scene of around 300 by 300 meters.
So mirroring the art direction pillars, we also have audio pillars. The first one is to prevent loop fatigue. So as our game relies on a time loop, there will be very repetitive sounds, and we want to make sure that these sounds don't get to the player's head. Next, we want to evoke sweet and sour emotions to the players, and that comes mainly from the music. And lastly, we want to have warm tones and an enveloping sound, which will feel very nice to live in. So we mainly get inspiration from Monument Valley, Tunic, and Moonlighter for the gameplay elements. For the UI, we tap into ASMR and Cult of the Lamp and Tiny Glade. And for the music, we want the calm and atmospheric sounds of Minecraft and Tunic, and also sprinkle small life points from the Portuguese music of Fado.
About our target audience, we want to focus on the cozy game, and so the cozy gamers. To define what cozy game is, it refers to how strongly a game evokes the fantasy of safety, of abundance. By abundance, we mean not lacking anything in game, and softness, the feeling of going without rushing. In cozy games, there are not only one type of player, and it realizes multiple ones. First, we can have casual gamers who play for the experience of the game and its narration. We can also have optimization-driven gamers. They are here for the challenge, and they use all the game mechanics and system at their best. An example we like to give is Stardew Valley, where, for example, casual gamers can go more into the story and going with this feeling of softness and not going without rushing, while the optimization-driven gamers are more focused in the farm and optimizing that farm to gain profit. And then the third type of gamers are people not used to play, and it can be closed ones of players like family or parents. And all those types of players type are different, but there's one thing they have in common, playing at their own pace. We want Saudade to offer to the player the possibility to personalize its experience to how they want.
Regarding our intention, here is our positioning matrix compared with other cozy and exploration games. We would place Saudade near of a short hike for coziness and Cocoon for level of exploration. And let's jump into production parts.
So, as we said before, there are different types of gamers interested in cozy games like ours. So, therefore, we want to design an accessible and customizable experience to meet the player's needs. In terms of difficulty, we will provide helps and hints about what to do and how to play along the game, as well as narrative reminders. And while time loop can be seen as an interesting challenge for some, it can be an obstacle for others. Consequently, player will have the possibility to delay this time loop or lengthen it if they prefer. In this case, if they choose to delay it, player could choose to finish a loop at any time they want. Finally, as we are designing the beginning of the game for this slice, we will work on creating a step-by-step onboarding. And furthermore, we will offer to the players presets settings at the beginning of each adventure. For example, a regular preset, a hardcore preset, or a more chill one in which there won't be any time constraints.
So for the complete game, we will aim 10 chapters. So in this vertical slice, we'll produce a small part of the first chapter. We choose to develop a sample of every feature. So as you can see, we will start the narration with the opening, and we'll produce one animation, one NPC, and one memory at least. And for the exploration, we aim for 4 path upgrades and 2 mysteries like secrets or shortcuts. And for the notebook part, we will produce the map and 1 or 2 birds to collect. So we identified that our main challenge results from our decision of producing the beginning of a game. It will take us time to achieve a high level of polish, especially for the onboarding part. Also, we have our UX designer work on 2 projects at the same time. So we know this is a risk, but as you know, the goal is not to avoid risk, is to choose which one we want to take. And if we choose to take this risk, it's because we're convinced that it is the best way to prove that our game is accessible, and if this is the best way to immerse players into our universe. So thank you, this is our team, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate now or later on the Plateau project.
Thank you. So, who has first questions or remarks? Yes.
Thank you for the presentation. It looks like a really sweet, and I want to be in that game to just relax and chill for so long. A question I have is, I don't know if it's a question or a remark, but you mentioned that your main goal is to make a game that player can play at their own pace, yet you have a very limited time loop, which would lead them to, like, even if you want to play chill, it's going to lead them to be really stressed. So I guess that's something you probably thought about, and I've seen that you have like issues with accessibility, but is this actually achieving the kind of goal you want to do? Is the time loop something actually interesting in what you want to make?
So this is a question we ask ourselves. So first, this is why we want to implement the possibility to just have no time loop for people which can really experience anxiety. And then I think it's not fundamentally a problem, because there is game like Stardew Valley. In the end, you are kind of in a time loop, like you have 10 minutes to do your day, and it feels okay. And the reset of the loop is not really punishing. It could be even seen as an opportunity, so you can backtrack and maybe you have found more knowledge, more items that will help you to open new areas which are more close to the spawn point. So it won't be a punishment, but it's just something to play with and that can even benefit you.
Thank you.
I just would like to add something to the answer. We also want to add a sort of flexibility to the time loop. Miriam mentioned the fact that we could turn off the time loop, but we also like to add some items that would allow players to refill a little bit of time if necessary, so the time loop is not too punishing and you can just take time to eat candy and boom, you have a lot. So we try to add features to make it easier, I would say.
First of all, a great name for the game. As a Brazilian, I can appreciate how good the name that is. It's a word that cannot be truly translated. Nostalgia doesn't cover it as something else. As a programmer and time loops, I have to ask, how are you guys gonna handle bugs caused by time loop? I did see you guys have a way to delete saves. But how can a player know if it's something that was intended to be happening? Like you're just stuck on something. Are you guys gonna have tips or something that shows up to say, oh, maybe there's a bug, maybe you should reset or something like that? So yeah.
Yes, so let me think. The question is about whether we have planned something when the player gets stuck.
Yeah.
Did we?
Like for example, the scene that you guys showed of the plank. What if the player never founded the plank and then they can't cross? Or what if somehow we reloaded the thing after the time loop and the plank like didn't spawn for whatever reason? Like there's bugs with time loops all the time.
About the bug part, what we're doing right now is saving whether you construct something or remove it. So each time you take the plank into your hands, it's removing the plank. And when you put it on the ground, it just builds it again. We can delete these files and then the world gets back to its original state. And there's a file for each level that saves the state of the level, and we can make maybe multiple saves, depending like we could make a level 1 save for save slot 1, for example. And so that's the bug part, and for now it's working well.
Okay.
And about the game design, more parts where we get stuck because the plank is on the wrong side. I think we could maybe add a reset function to restore the environment settings, but that's a problem we thought about because, like for example, in the demo, if you take the plank on the other side of the river and put it like in the other world, now you're stuck because you can never reach the teleporter, and that's something we need to think about because
yeah.
It's a huge
And
problem.
then one final question. Obviously, you guys have 3 different types of player you guys are aiming for the optimizing level kind of players. If an optimizer already knows I won't have time to put the plank down and then get to the end, he will want a feature to skip and restart again. So it's a good thing for you to optimize it even further for them.
Yeah, we totally agree, and we have a feature to reset the loop at any moment you want.
Okay, cool.
I don't know if you play Minute, but there is a similar gameplay.
No, I haven't played that one.
No, no worry.
Other questions, remarks? Everybody is deep into their memories. Yeah.
This is really interesting concept. Do you have other ideas of elements that evolve with the time that passes from one loop to the other? You mentioned plants growing, and you gave us an example of a gameplay element just appearing, which, like, even that I'm interested in. Like, how does that get there? Do you have an explanation for that? And just what are your other ideas around this?
So around timed events, we have some ideas. We have, for example, a day and night cycle, which will, during the day or the night, you will find maybe different birds. We would like also to play with the light and the sun. Maybe the shadows could indicate something at certain time. So we have some ideas. We haven't decided yet which one would be in the game.
Cool. Thank you.
Mishka, you have a question or a remark? Sorry.
Yeah, a quick remark. Maybe you can find how there is a Latin American game, an Argentinian game called Quantum League, and it plays with the butterfly effect idea. It's a shooter, a competitive shooter where you have like 3 lives, and each life is living in the same. So you can kill the previous player, your previous opponent, so he doesn't kill and you regain 1 life. So they have quite a lot of things you can do with the environment and the time loop, and they found a really great solution to bugs and those kind of things that happen all the time when you play with time loops. So you might be able to find some documentation on that. I know there is a few videos of them doing a post-mortem, but it's in Spanish. But I'm sure you can check it out. Just put it in your margin, I think.
Sorry, what's the name of the game? We didn't hear, right?
Quantum Arena.
Thanks.
Or Quantum League. Let me check that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Are there other questions or remarks? References? No? Okay. Oh, I see something. Yeah. Oh no, it's just Mishka still. So if there's no other questions or remarks, let's congrats the last team of today. And to conclude this day here in the amphitheater, and to let you have some time after to keep talking to the teams just upstairs, I will invite all the students to come back down, so we will have the final words. And while everybody's coming, I want to thank the administrative team, the technical team for letting us having this presentation today. Yes, come. I will also thank the pedagogical team that helps the students to fulfill all their work. And so please, maybe a round of applause to everybody. And of course, I want to thank you, Jerry. I think we really had a very rich exchange today. I want to thank you for that, either online or here. So thank you very much. We will look also forward to all the elements you wrote in your evaluation file. So as I said this morning, you have 1 week still to fulfill it and send it to May. Thank you very much for that. It's very valuable for them. And let's congratulate once again this whole cohort. I think we really heard very nice games today, and we are looking forward to see the evolution of your propositions. So please join me and congrats all these teams. And I will give the mic to the godmother to final words.
So they are all very, very good and interesting and promising projects. I've been surprised by them all. I'm always surprised by the quality of it and how close to a proper pitch that you can submit to a publisher it is. So truly, you are most of you on the best first step ever. So now you just have to make decision and cut some slides for some of you and concentrate on the essential of the game. But I do feel that you are all on the good path here. They all look fantastic. Congratulations to you.
Thank you all. I think we're going to finish the discussion upstairs. Congrats for that. Have some rest. Yeah, and be kind to each other and to your player, as you said earlier. Thank you very much online for following us, and see you again mid-December for the next step. Congrats again.